My dear brothers and sisters, the love and blessings of the Mother and Sri Aurobindo to all of you from Sri Aurobindo Ashram, Delhi branch. My name is Ramesh Bijlani, and I have with me here today a bright, young, budding psychologist, Asmita Bijlani. While she was talking to me the other day, she said that she is reading Sri Aurobindo's teachings related to psychology in relation to an assignment that she has to submit. As a devotee of Sri Aurobindo and the Mother, this was music to my ears, and I asked her whether I could be of any help, and she gladly said that she has some questions which she would like to ask me. So please go ahead, Asmita.
Yes. Thank you so much for the opportunity. My question comes from being a young person myself. I often wonder the importance and the spirituality in a young person's life. So even psychologists like Carl Jung believed that spirituality is a domain that one is ready to explore only after the age of 40. So, do you think that there is some relationship between age and spirituality? And if there is, then how can young people begin to strive towards self awareness, enlightenment, and spiritual growth?
I'm glad you asked this question because this is something that has dominated the world, including India, during the last several centuries. That there is a clear dichotomy between worldly life and spiritual life. And since in young age you have so many compulsions, obligations, responsibilities to fulfill, you are actively engaged in worldly life, and therefore you have no time for spirituality. But then if you come to see our distant past, in ancient India, which certainly, everybody acknowledges was no less spiritual than the world is today. In the distant past, India was second to none in the world in terms of prosperity and also in terms of the development of science and technology, which means that there is no necessary or essential dichotomy between worldly life and spiritual life. And therefore, in fact, Sri Aurobindo was one of the pioneers in emphasizing this and making a very powerful case for a life-affirming version of spirituality. And then the Mother gave it a practical shape in the Sri Aurobindo Ashram at Pondicherry. So that established that what the philosophy of Sri Aurobindo and the Mother was, they both had the same philosophy essentially. Was not something just academic, and it could be given a practical shape. So they have been one among the pioneers in this area, and I'm glad that reading him could ignite your mind, and you felt that, do I really have to wait till old age to engage with spirituality? You don't have to.
Exactly.
So spirituality is something which can be brought into daily life. Not only it can be brought into daily life itself is the field for the practice of spirituality, because spirituality can't be practiced in a vacuum. To sort of give a rough example, suppose somebody retires to a forest or to a cave. How can this person be tested whether he's really practicing spirituality? In the sense that if spirituality means not getting attached to sensory pleasures, if there are no sensory pleasures available, if there are no sensory pleasures around, then in any case you have no choice. So you have truly been able to master your mind and overcome the attachment to sensory pleasures if you keep away from them when they are available. They are all around you. That is what happens in worldly life, and yet you can keep away from them. That is the importance. So spirituality can not only be practiced, in fact, it is ordinary worldly life which is essential for the practice of spirituality. It is the field for the practice of spirituality. So it is not that the spiritual practice will just enrich, enhance, and ennoble life, which it does. So in that sense, spirituality helps us live a better and more meaningful life. The other way around is also true. Life helps us in practicing spirituality properly. So it is meant for everybody, and no matter in at what stage of life we are, we can practice it. The way we practice it would be different, because that depends upon the circumstances and the type of work that we have to do. And as a student, for example, the way a student can practice spirituality is firstly by putting heart and soul into what you're studying. So have a love for learning. Whatever you do, if you do it properly with a sense of gratitude, because you have opportunities to study which everybody does not have. So that gratitude, with you study with that gratitude, with a full sense of commitment and sincerity and intellectual honesty, that is one thing you can do. The second thing that one can do towards this is that why are you studying? So establish a goal which goes beyond just making a good living so that one can have a materially comfortable life. So right from now, have a wider goal. And I'm very happy to see that there are more and more young people now who are not just looking for a career, but are thinking of how they'll be able to combine a career with what they sometimes call personal growth, spiritual growth, growth of consciousness, or even to some extent, we may say just becoming a good person. These essentially take the person in the same direction. And young people are interested in this. So that is a very encouraging development. And so as a student itself, your practice begins. Then, as a student, you're not busy with studies all the time. So look around and see what is it that you can do by way of giving something which you have plenty of, which somebody around you needs. It may be just time. If you have extra time, the time itself can be given to somebody. You have knowledge, much more knowledge than probably some people around you have. And if they need it, you can give it. This is important, the complementary situation, the fit between what you can give and what somebody needs. You are ready to give, the other person doesn't need it, you can't do anything. So, but you can find those type of complementary situations. So that is yet another way in which your spiritual practice begins. So it's not that one phase ends and then only the next begins. In fact, the student life, what was called in ancient India, the brahmacharya phase of life, was a preparation for the next grihastha. So to some extent that is true. But then brahmacharya itself had its own spiritual values to be lived and own set of austerities to be observed. Austerities doesn't mean torturing your body. Austerities means basically trying to live on less, minimizing your needs, trying to live a simple life. Because that is what is compatible with efficient and effective learning. Because this is a phase of learning, and that learning is a preparation for the next phase. And the next phase of a householder was in turn the preparation for yet the next phase, when the essential responsibilities were over and you were more free to spread your love more thinly on those who may not be related to you. Of course, that can also begin during grihastha, but then after the essential responsibilities are over, you can do it on a still larger scale. So it was a preparation for that. And you can afford to get detached from many worldly responsibilities and relationships. So that was the next phase. So the natural progression of life was visualized in ancient Indian culture, but at no stage it was divorced from spirituality. So spirituality can be brought into every phase of life. It enhances and enriches our worldly life, and it in fact helps in the worldly life, helps in the practice of spirituality. So no phase is immune from it, or no phase is incompatible with it, and it is in no way incompatible with material progress, because I told you, till about 1,000 years ago, India was none to anybody in the world in terms of both prosperity as well as scientific and technological progress.
That was a very good example that you gave, and it's something that can be practically applied by us as students. So that really answers my question very well.
Thank you.
Thank
if you have any more questions, we'll meet again. Thank you.
Sure. Nice. Thank you. Okay.